Hey y'all, I hope you're well. Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Boulevard. This is a podcast where we shine more light on healthcare, and our goal here is to provide more options to people looking to choose healthcare as a career path, regardless of their background. My name is Sena Kakpomo, and I am your host and creator here. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Remember, you can tune in on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. I am here back for another interview. This is going to be our opening chapter for the physical therapy section of our podcast. I am happy to have Colin and Jeff with me today from Bridge to PT. And we're going to have some good conversation about what that field is about, what they've done, what they've learned, and so forth. But before we jump into it, please let me have you guys introduce yourselves. Colin, take it away.
Sure. Thanks so much, Sanan. I appreciate you having us on. My name is Colin McDonald. I'm a physical therapist. I am co-owner, co-founder, COO, add all the hats you can to the roles that we play here for Bridge to PT. Bridge to PT is a physical therapy company. We are essentially a connectivity platform for mobile concierge delivered to you physical therapy. I've been a physical therapist for about 6 years and have spent quite a bit of time in and out of the clinics. And we'll talk about that more as we go. But, that's what kind of pushed us to kind of try something new and try this concierge model of this mobile care.
All right. And thank you for that. And Jeff?
Perfect. So my name's Jeff Coonsey. I'm a physical therapist too. I actually met Colin in physical therapy school. And we had this idea to start Bridge to PT, and we live in different parts of Southern California. So kind of reconnected us, and we've been building this project for a couple of years now. But been a physical therapist for 6 years, and born and raised in Southern California, staying around here, can't leave the weather. So it's kind of nice, but Colin covered most of it, so we can kind of move on from that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. What you mentioned, you've been in physical therapy for both of you for about 6 years. What settings, clinical settings, or population of patients have you worked with? You can start, Jeff.
Yeah, I've done most of my work in outpatient orthopedic settings. It's a wide range patient population from, pediatrics, probably around age 7 and up to, I think my oldest patient was 97 years old. So a wide age range. Any orthopedic injuries, joint replacements are a big one now, but post-surgical or all the way out to vestibular disorders, balance disorders, and then with athletes as well.
Okay. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, I have spent most of my time in outpatient orthopedics as well. When we're in school, we do our internships and our rotations in some different fields. I was actually an EMT before PT school, so spent a lot of time in hospitals and ambulances and kind of that aspect of healthcare. But as a PT, I've worked mainly in outpatient orthopedics. So kind of the same drill as Jeff. I have you beat though, Jeff. I think my oldest patient celebrated his 104th birthday at the clinic. So
wow,
beat by a few years.
I mean, y'all must be great PTs because they're
Keeping him going.
They're staying alive. So that's
right.
If nothing else, that's the goal, I'll say.
That's right.
But that's good to hear. What is some of your I guess challenges that you face in the field in general in PT as a PT?
Yeah, I think, one of the big challenges for physical therapy as a whole right now is the insurance reimbursement situation. I know that healthcare as a whole, healthcare dollars and insurance is a hot topic in healthcare as a whole. as with any other profession, as physical therapists kind of progress down the line and the profession progresses, now we are required to get a doctorate, doctorate level education. Used to be a master's. So the doctorate level education obviously brings with it a higher price tag to go to school. So we all come out of school with a lot of loans typically. And then we get into, the field, and a lot of us, the majority of us, go into, an outpatient orthopedic or other type of outpatient clinic. And the reimbursement rates are just dropping and dropping and dropping. It's really tough, for a standalone outpatient facility to kind of negotiate and get any work done with an insurance company. The insurance companies kind of say, here's what we'll pay you for a visit. And if that's not enough, good luck not seeing any of our patients, because to the insurance company, there's a lot of different options. So I think that's really one of the hardest, foundational problems for PT. It drives a lot of other issues, which I'm sure we'll talk about more, but you end up having to see more patients in a day to get more, money flowing in. At the end of the day, it's money in and money out for a business.
Right.
So I think that's one of the toughest things for PT as a profession right now.
Okay. And if you can answer this, what is some of the ways your company specifically have attempted and succeeded in fixing that or responding to that challenge, essentially?
Jeff, you want to talk about that a little? You want me to jump into that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, we are an out-of-network company, and it's a transition for some patients. We're trying to educate a lot of patients on how insurance works in the first place. When you hear that you're going to a clinic and that insurance will cover it, you don't realize, what your deductible is. A lot of people are walking around with a $2,000 to $5,000 deductible. So you have to hit your deductible before it's even insurance will pay for anything. And then you usually have a co-insurance where you pay still 20% or so until you hit your out-of-pocket max. So a lot of people going to these outpatient clinics are going to be paying, anywhere from $75 to $100 a visit anyways. And they're going to see their therapist for about 20 minutes. So we're just trying to kind of educate the market and the patients on, you can pay a little bit more and get personalized one-on-one care with a therapist at a convenient location, right? So that's kind of our model. We're trying to shape healthcare a little different in the physical therapy world, because right now it's like especially in the outpatient setting, it's a system that's, pretty standardized across the board. There are some unique models out there, but for the most part, most clinics are pretty similar with their delivery model. So we're trying to change that a little bit. We do let patients submit their own insurance claims, so they can get some reimbursement, and then it kind of puts the power back into the patient's hands to get, reimbursement from their insurance companies. Because a lot of times the insurance companies don't want to listen to the provider, in a sense. They have kind of power over that. But if you put, the power back in the patient's hands, I think that's a way to possibly start changing the model of delivery. And I think some people in our field are moving towards that path of cash-based or out-of-network care, just to bring the quality back, because, that's suffered with the reimbursements that Colin was talking about.
Right. Okay. And relating back to PT in general, how would you describe a physical therapist to somebody who's never heard of it? You can take it away, Jeff, since you're already talking.
Yeah. Colin and I have talked about this a little bit, because there's so many different fields now, right? Athletic trainers, you have just the general, like personal trainers, masseuse, acupuncturists, and where do we fit in? And, I think in general, we kind of come forward as the experts in movement analysis, biomechanic analysis, and like postural correction. We're heavily exercise based. We learn a lot of manual therapy as well. But I think that's where our specialty would come in. So if you have just generalized back pain or knee pain, you can stand in front of us. We'll analyze your posture. We'll see how you move, and we'll kind of see where your asymmetries are, where your weaknesses are, where your, length or strength deficits are in the muscles, and work on developing a program to correct those for you. Very holistic approach, I guess. You being a PA, that a lot of it is medication driven. And we don't have that on our sides. We can't prescribe imaging in the state of California. So, we have to use all the tools that we have to kind of help get a good idea of what tissues involved with injuries. And by doing that, we have to really analyze somebody's movement and their static posture.
Let me ask you again. Did you say you can or you cannot prescribe imaging?
At this point, we cannot. There are other states that are starting to pass laws. They do have stipulations, I believe, though, on having to work with a physician that will receive the imaging after you order it.
So as a PT, you can order, say, X-ray or MRI or things like that?
Nope. Yeah, but chiropractors, I believe, can. So again, it's this whole jockeying of a political jockeying too, right? Of all our associations fighting to get different powers for our Practice Act, what we can do and what we can't do. And, like another one is dry needling, right? For physical therapists, is we can't do dry needling in the state of California. And, that's kind of stepping on acupuncturist toes. And so we're all kind of just trying to figure out what our place is in healthcare, in the healthcare model. So I think going back to it, I think ours is definitely with movement assessment, movement impairments, and trying to use those tools to help kind of direct somebody holistically how to heal.
And for Colin, what role do you think, would you say, education plays in the field of physical therapists?
Education, you mean for physical therapists or for patients?
Yeah, for just you educating patients. Is that a big component of your job as a PT or?
Yeah, patient education is a huge component. Trying to get compliance for patients to do their exercises, their mobility work, whatever it may be outside of the clinic or outside of the setting in which you're seeing them, is a really big component. And not only educating them as to what physical therapy can offer them as a whole, but really trying to educate them about what's going on in their body and how the things that we're working on can make a change with that. That's one of the things that I enjoy the most about the way our company runs with, delivering care to the patient. We go to the patient's home, to their office, to the park, wherever they want to go. And when you're in that setting with them, you can really take the time and say, okay, here's the exercises I want you to do. See that chair over there. You're going to use that chair for this, and this exercise. And I see you have an old dumbbell in the garage. We're going to dust that off, and you're going to use that as your load. And you're going to bring that inside. We're going to use it right here, so that when I leave, they're not just looking around thinking, okay, well, where am I going to do that exercise that we did in the clinic? They say, oh, I already have it set up. The dumbbell's there, the chair is there, the bands are there, whatever it may be. I have it all set up so that when the PT is gone, the patient feels like, okay, this is really my program. This is where I live. I have all my stuff. They can really take ownership in what's going on. But yeah, patient education is a huge component of what we do as physical therapists.
And it goes back to what we were talking about last time we spoke about the difference in when it might be a little harder for you to keep patient compliance, since it really is patient heavy, right? The outcome is really heavily dependent on the patient and whether they follow your instruction when you're not there.
Totally.
It's somebody like a PA like I am, or NP or MD, people, it's easier for folks to swallow a pill than to get out of the couch and go into the garage and stretch or whatever you may have,
For sure.
for them. So but I thought that was interesting.
Definitely. And really quick to add to that, with the education is the why, I think, is so important, of like why they're doing something, right? Because, a typical patient that hasn't had any experience in this field they might look at us or personal trainer as the same, or, just, oh, this person's just sitting there like moving a band out with their leg. Okay, I'm just going to do this. This doesn't really make sense to me, but like why they're doing the things they're doing is a really important thing to get them to follow through.
No, that's totally fair. It definitely is much. It's easier to get compliance when you're explaining things to patient more and they know why they're doing it versus just do this and do that.
Yes, definitely.
Giving them orders. You mentioned athletic trainer earlier, so I want to go back to that and sort of have one of your sort of sort out the different um scope of practice, I could say, or the differences between PT or athletic trainer. What would you say would be some of the things that differentiate those two titles?
Jeff, you want to take that one? I know you're the soccer guy. You've been around the sideline.
I can start from what I know. Yeah, we're starting to partner with an athletic training company, actually, as we're starting to get into youth sports and treating players in sports on the field. So they can still be with their team and everything, and we can see them in their environment. But I think athletic trainers typically in the past have been the ones that deal with acute injuries. So, if somebody gets injured on a field, they're the ones that kind of run out there. However, physical therapists are starting to get into that space too. I think athletic trainers are great at load progression, from what I understand too. So like exercise prescription and understanding how to load certain tissues. They are good with, I think, all the prep for sports. So like taping, they're the ones usually on the sideline with the teams. And then, physical therapists are usually on the back end, right? So if somebody gets injured, the ATC will deal with the initial injury, and then they send them usually to a PT for the rehabilitation portion. So like rehabbing the person back to get onto the field is usually the physical therapist side of it. So our roles work really closely. We're not usually stepping on each other's toes. I think we can work in congruence with each other for sure.
And what other specialties you essentially just learned that you do interact with athletic trainers? What other specialties do PTs often work with in terms of professional providers, healthcare providers?
Yeah, so I think, it depends on the setting that you're in, right? In the setting that Jeff and I spent the majority of our careers in the outpatient orthopedic setting, you're typically dealing with the referring physician or PA or DO, whoever it is. More often than not, it's an orthopedist or an orthopedic surgeon, but we certainly get referrals from, urgent cares and stuff like that. The hard part about that clinic model is when you're seeing, 20 something patients a day, it's really hard to have the time to make the connection with the providing physician or the PA or whoever it is to, delve into the case a little bit more or get some questions answered or, say, hey, I don't know if you have a protocol for this surgery. I'm more than happy to kind of do what seems right with it, but it's a surgery that might be a little tweaked from something I've seen before. And if you have some specifics you'd like me to follow, I'm more than happy to do that. It's really hard when you're in the clinic to get those relationships built and done. And again, that's one of the really nice things about this model is that, when you're only seeing a few patients in a day, you have a lot more time to make those connections with the provider. You're probably talking to the doctor on the phone when you get the referral because they're reaching out specifically for, hey, I got this person that needs, some specific care. And so it kind of allows us to be a lot more close-knit of a team, if you will. In the clinic, the other component of the care team, if you will, is the aide or the PT technician. And if you've ever been to physical therapy, you probably know you see your PT for, a few minutes at the start of your treatment, depending on where you're at. And then the rest of the time you're working with someone to kind of finish your exercises, get you on ice, whatever at the end. And that person is not necessarily, they're not licensed. Oftentimes they're kind of in the early stages of trying to get into PT school. So they're usually in school and kind of learning about, anatomy and this and that. Whereas, in the mobile model, it's just us. It's just the PT. You've got me for 60 plus minutes, and I'm watching every movement that you're doing. We're making tweaks to every little exercise you're doing. So, and that way we can kind of make that team a little bit more heavy on the professional side and a little less on like the, let's just get through the exercises side. So I think that's a real good benefit to what we've got going with this model.
Okay. Let me take you a little back to PT education. As far as, so you mentioned it's a doctorate program now, used to be a master's, but once you're done with your education, do you have options for fellowship or residency or continued education? And how long are those usually, and are they beneficial? It's a
Yeah, I'll start with that one. There are some options for residencies and fellowships within physical therapy. It's not the same as you view it like in medicine, for example, that you do your residency and all of that. Right. When we get out of PT school, we're pretty well rounded to kind of treat any part of the body, and we get a good mix of everything. There's some residencies that I know of, like through Kaiser, that a lot of people do, like an orthopedic residency. There's some fellowships for programs for like manual therapy fellowships and stuff. Typically, I think they're in like the 1 to 2 year range, time wise. Okay. Outside of that, every 2 years we have to renew our license, and we have to do a certain amount of continuing education. And so that's kind of on us to pick and choose what we think would be the right thing to kind of develop our career a little bit further. Mm-hmm. To me, I think that's a great way to kind of hone in on a specialty if you want to go a specialty route, because you can get certifications that way. You can get all kinds of great stuff that, you can add to your resume and make you more attractive that way. Mm-hmm. But there are options for, fellowships and residencies. I personally have never really felt the draw to get into them and do them. Like you said, kind of what's the benefit of it? I think a lot of times you do make yourself more desirable for an employer because you've got more experience and, more things under your belt. But really in physical therapy, the big thing is the clinical experience and the experience one-on-one with the patient. I mean, you can do all the education you want, but as soon as you get in the clinic, or as soon as you get in front of a patient and they present like not like the book, or not like how you learned about in school, you got to learn how real people present. So that's where the real education component to me comes in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's one of the like almost classic phrases when I was in school was just know that this is the book. It's not always gonna be the finding when it comes to real life, and don't go around looking for like bright red knee before you think it's gout or something like that, or you will never give the diagnosis will not be correct because it's like totally different than the book.
Totally.
But yeah, I'm glad you guys are, deal with that shenanigan as well. So, we are in this together.
That's right.
But moving on from that, how easy is it to move from specialty to specialty as a PT, or from clinical settings? What's the route for that?
Yeah, I think kind of like Colin said, when you first get out of school, we're pretty well rounded across the board. And then you have clinical rotations when you're in school, like internships, that you can try different settings and stuff. So you learn a little bit about these different fields. But some of the jumps can be pretty big because for the physical therapy field, there's so many different options out there nowadays. So, I was talking to Colin, if I made a jump from outpatient orthopedic to pediatrics or neuro, or, there's so many hippotherapy with like horses and stuff, there's so many different options. It's a pretty big jump if you haven't had any experience there. So to make those transitions, there's all these certifications out there that you can get that help you learn more past your college education, which again, the college education is like the tip of the iceberg. for physical therapy. There's these Con Ed courses to really start getting more tools in your belt to try in clinic setting. But one of the biggest things I think is finding a place where there's like some kind of mentorship, or you can have somebody that is experienced in the field going through cases as you start learning them after you make that transition, because it can be definitely a steep learning curve, depending on what setting you're leaving and going to. But there are some, again, like, even model changes. So like with our working in the clinic or working for our company now, or what we started, it's definitely a different setting. It's a different jump of going into somebody's home. And, you have to get used to that. It's not an easy thing to do. That's why we usually require some experience from our therapists in the clinic before even trying this. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a learning curve as well. But between specialties, it could be tricky. So the certifications and mentorships, I think, are the best advice I can give to somebody if you try to make that jump.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. And I know we talked about the challenge earlier, but what has been some of your favorite things about the profession and working for your own company?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I got into this, I think most PTs do this too, as kind of an altruistic intention of helping people, right? Like, our education is getting more pricey, and we're probably reimbursed as a staff therapist. We're paid probably one of the lowest in healthcare, I would think. And so we're getting into it for, I think, different reasons. And, I've enjoyed spending time, even in the clinic. I enjoyed spending time with people, hearing different stories, hearing their life stories, and then, really helping them get back to whatever their goals are. And it's, sometimes it's an athlete that wants to get back to a high level sport, or sometimes it's, the grandma that wants to be able to pick up her grandchild again. And, not just to work on like knee range of motion, but work on those actual functional goals to get them back to what means something to them in their life, is really special. And, now working for ourselves and going into people's homes and stuff, I'm spending 60 to 90 minutes with each person. I'm starting to meet some family members and stuff when I'm over there, and I really get a good idea of what their life's like. And it's really cool. It's a really cool, special thing to kind of live through their eyes, in a sense, for a little bit, and hear different stories. And so that's my favorite thing. I mean, the diagnosing and the treatment and stuff, it's all fun. It's a fun puzzle to try to figure things out and try to help somebody. But that's really, I think, where all my eggs are in that basket, for sure. It's special.
Anything different from that to add, Colin?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I would echo that 100%. I mean, the relationships that we get to build with our patients, I think, are unlike most aspects of healthcare. I think you go to the doctor and you get a couple minutes with the doc, or you're in urgent care and it's busy. People are moving, and you're kind of just there once, or maybe again in another month. But we get to see our patients 2 or 3 times a week sometimes. And, now going into their homes, like Jeff said, we get to spend a lot of time with them. And it doesn't just become, the knee at 9 o'clock. It becomes Sally, who needs to do X, Y, and Z. And, this is what her house looks like. And it's a really cool thing, getting to form those relationships and then see the real effects in their life and see the changes in their life, and like the light on someone's face, like when that grandma can start playing with their kids again, or get down to the ground and get back up, and like how awesome that is for them, is really the best part. And I think the part that keeps us all coming back.
I like it. I love to hear it. And in that rhyme, what is before this and now, what's life work balance like as a PT? And if you can sort of mention that before you study bridge to PT and now, and sort of kind of compare and contrast that would be great. You want to start,
Definitely.
Jeff?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, clinic life, like Colin said, you see a patient, most clinics are like around every 20 minutes now. So you're seeing 3 patients an hour, 20 plus patients a day. And then you have all your notes that you have to do, all your documentation at the end of the day. And it's definitely a hustle, right? There's some awesome aspects to it of getting to treat a lot of patients, getting your hands on a lot of patients, seeing a lot of different diagnoses. You definitely refine your skills that way. But for me, I didn't have as much of a work-life balance when I was in the clinic. And part of it, I mean, my wife and I had a son who was in the hospital and at the time, and we were like transitioning, between the hospital and work, home, hospital, work, home. And there's like no time for anything, like for my family, right? It was all on the back burner. And so, what I'm finding now, it's funny, I'm treating patients where I'm helping to run this company, but I'm also the one that's staying at home with my daughter during the day. And so my wife's a teacher. She's at work during the day and I get to hang out with my daughter almost every day of the week. I walk down with her and get a tea and we go out and walk by the beach and I get to spend this quality time with her that means more than anything to me. Right. So, my work-life balance has gotten way better, of course, which is crazy to think about, especially when you are running a company, right? You think that it would just be insane, but I think we're doing something really special here, and we're just trying to get the word out. But I think we're offering this kind of third choice, right? Right now you can either be a clinic owner or you can be a staff therapist, and we're giving another option to these staff therapists of, hey, you can set your own price, you could set your own schedule, and you can find that work-life balance, right? Even if it's like just cutting down on some of your clinic time and you're doing part-time in the clinic and then part-time, mobile therapy and setting your own schedule, you can take a 3 or 4 day weekend if you want, right? And like, regroup. And I think that patient care improves when the person providing the care is in a really good mental space. And, right now our profession is in this kind of weird burnout state where, especially in the outpatient clinics, a lot of the therapists coming out didn't realize what the reality of the situation was, right? When they went into school. So I think a lot of people are grasping, besides our company, a lot of people are grasping for different options than a staff therapist in a clinic. So that's kind of where I'm at with my work-life balance. I don't know about you, Colin.
Yeah, I think, my experience has been very similar. In the clinic, it's tough. Your long hours and, Sanan, how it goes working, long days with patients. It's long and it's draining. It's emotionally draining.
Yeah.
And, I have 2 little ones and it's a hard thing to come home after that long day and kind of jump in.
Have the energy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, that's what we found, moving from the clinic to this mobile option. And that's what we really want to provide for our PTs. We want to give them, like Jeff was saying, the option to, hey, there's another way. You can make good money. We're not trying to tell you don't make any money. You can make good money and you can work a whole lot less. You can have a lot more time for the things that make you healthy. Because like Jeff said, a healthy therapist means a healthy patient.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fair. And what is some opportunities? Clearly, you guys have your own company, but for those who either don't or are not interested in opening their own company, what are some leadership opportunities for a PT? You can take it away, Colin.
Sure. Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about this, in the traditional PT setting, there's not a lot of opportunities. You're kind of either staff therapist or you're going to branch off and start your own thing. You can kind of move up and be clinic director, but essentially you're just the staff therapist and you have more stuff to do on top of that, really, when you're in that role. So, this opportunity with Bridge for physical therapists is really an opportunity to run your own business without any of the overhead and headache of starting your own business. Our PTs are independent contractors. They're not employees of ours. They're doing their own thing. They're in charge of how they treat. We support them with everything that we can on the back end as far as, scheduling and documentation and processing and all that stuff. But they're running their own show. So, I mean, talk about the ultimate leadership there. You're the one calling the shots. And, we've talked to a lot of PTs about, growing a network of PTs in their community so that they can kind of head, if you will, like a group of PTs around them. There's no reason that a group of PTs can't get into some common continuing education courses together and kind of grow a specialty in an area. So I think there's a lot of really cool opportunities. Jeff had mentioned before, we're getting into youth sports. We have a couple of PTs right now looking to kind of grow their own practice into some youth sports with some teams and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see these PTs kind of become the point person for, running a program with a school or with a team or whatever it might be. So I think that's our goal, to kind of empower our PTs to gain some of that they can't really find in the clinic.
Okay. I have a few more questions for you, but I'm going to dial it back and ask you, Colin. What
Yes.
is sorry, Jeff, my bad.
We look alike.
Sorry, sorry, Jeff.
Okay.
What is, I wanted to ask you, what, can you give us just a quick, like, how to become a PT?
How to become like a PT from like high school kind of time, or
Yeah, like what are the educational journey essentially?
got it. All of us are different, first of all. So like, to let you know really quick about mine, I actually went to school for business.
Okay.
And played soccer at school through my college. And then I went back and got my master's in business. So physical therapy wasn't even on the radar for me. And then I was out of school for 2 to 3 years. And I was personal training for 6 years through that time. And I got connected with an outpatient orthopedic physical therapy clinic that a friend was going to. And I talked to one of the owners, and he kind of told me the route of what I would have to do schooling wise, which I had already been in school for 7 years. And to learn, I had to go back and take about 20 science prereqs, including labs, and then go to a 3-year doctorate. Was a lot, like, as a big commitment. But, people can take that route. And, when Colin and I were in school, a lot of people did. It was a second kind of career for a lot of people. And so, education wise, for those people, you're going to have to usually go back to a school, usually a junior college, and complete the science prereqs, which are, a couple of chemistries, couple of physics, some psych, and like maybe 4 biology classes, including anatomy, physiology. And then to actually get into PT school when you apply, it's super competitive. And so you have to have good grades, to even be considered. I think the lowest they'll even go is like a 3.0. They probably just throw out, below 3.0s at that point. And then, and then there's the traditional route. So if somebody knows that what they want to do and they get right into college, a lot of people, you can, major in biology or kinesiology, some science background, and you graduate with an undergraduate degree. And then, a lot of those prereqs are included in that degree. And then you can apply for school. You have to sit for the whatchamacallit. What test is that again, Colin? I always forget.
It was the GRE before you get into grad
test.
school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, the GMAT's for the business, but
certification test. Okay. All right.
Yeah, the GR. So that's the other thing you have to do education wise, is after you get the degree, is sit for the GRE. Again, schools are still looking, I think, primarily at grade point average and your GRE scores. Then you have letter recs written, and you have to get volunteer hours and stuff, or work hours. But I think a lot of schools, the baseline is looking at your performance in school and on the GRE. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. All that.
No, that was good. So we have the traditional way, and then the not so traditional way for folks who are who already had another career and things like that. Essentially, grown folks.
Yep.
Grown folks. What is so I'm assuming, a lot of healthcare professionals, we have to do this. Y'all have a certification exam after you're done. in order to be
There's the kids. So that's the work-life balance, right?
yeah,
Working and life,
exactly.
Oh,
working and life at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, we have to sit for our we're board certified with the state. So if you work in California or you plan on working in California, you have to sit for the physical therapy exam, and then you have to pass your boards, and then you're licensed, yeah, in that state. And then Colin, I don't know if you know about how they transfer over per state, because I've never
different
moved.
states.
I've watched, look in some of our Facebook groups and stuff, but
Yeah, usually a couple of our friends that have moved out of state, usually you have to pass the laws exam. So we have to take the kind of like PT knowledge exam, and then there's a laws exam. So you have to pass the law exam, yeah, for the state that you're moving into. And then depending on what state it is, some states have reciprocity with like the PT license. I think there are some states that you have to take some additional testing. Like, for example, if a state allows dry needling and you're moving from a state that did not, I think you have to kind of study for and take a component of that so that you're able to kind of practice in that new act in the new state.
Okay. Okay. So it's sort of like state to state basis. But
Yeah.
the thing about this law exam that I'm learning about, the first special, well, not specialty program I learned did that was pharmacy. So I didn't know you guys do that too, which is sorry
Yeah.
to test.
yeah,
One is already bad enough for me. So okay.
And I
definitely.
actually know a couple of people that was the sticking point. They passed the PT part, but they had to try the law exam a couple times because it's this like really weird thing that doesn't feel like it really applies to what you're going to do. So it's like a totally different study. It's weird.
Yeah, no, I don't have a law exam, and yeah, I feel like half of the tests I have to take is stuff that are no longer
Yeah.
valuable or what have you. But it's a system. We gotta work it.
Yeah.
Now, question for you: what is, as far as it pertains to bridge to PT, what's your ultimate goal with the company, with your company? You can take it away.
Yeah, I think our goal always for this company has been to change the way physical therapy is delivered, change the experience for both the provider and for the patient.
Mhm.
I think patients oftentimes see physical therapy as something that's not really going to help too much. My doctor said I had to go try it before I do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
And that's really too bad that that's kind of been the perception of physical therapy. And our profession has a big role to play in that, the development of that perception. And physical therapists can offer you a lot. There's a lot of different things that we can work with, with different patients to improve their lives, to help them get back to what they want to do.
Mhm.
It's been set up in such a way that it's difficult for PTs to do that all the time with patients. So our goal with this company has been to improve the delivery of care on the PT side and to be, giving the patients a better option for physical therapy.
Okay. Um, Jeff, what are some options you have, if at all, for financially people who are not necessarily able to pay out of pocket for your services?
Yeah, I think patients can get reimbursed partially for out-of-network services. So like, again, we have a super bill that like patients can use and send in and get reimbursed partially for the treatments. We are not completely accessible for everybody right now, but we do have plans in the future. We are a super small business still and trying to grow, but once our revenue hits a certain point, we plan on trying to start some programs where we can offer some like scholarships or like free treatments to people. And like even in the sports world, we are already talking to some of our teams about that with, because people playing, say, club soccer, there's some kids that come from very wealthy families and some that don't have the resources. So to be able to still pay our therapists to provide the service, but then not charge the patient at all. That's our plan for the future, to be more accessible to bigger communities. And then we also are starting to contract with some payers out there, which makes us a little bit more accessible for certain populations, certain communities that might not be able to reach us prior to that. So we're slowly expanding into some new spaces. So we'll just kind of see where it takes us. We have these visions that we want to do, but there's always these curves in the road on the way that send us in like a different trajectory. So we're really open to, different options moving forward in the future.
And one thing I should have clear, y'all are only in Southern California, or are you able to already have PTs in your company in other places, in other states, I should say?
Yeah, we're mostly in Southern California right now. We have gotten some interest from PTs in other states. I think in Oregon, one in somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember where. We have not expanded into other states yet, mainly just because of kind of the focused marketing effort that it takes to kind of build a PT base and a patient base around us here. We have not expanded into any other states yet, but definitely something that we're open to and looking to do as we grow. The cool thing about this model is it works wherever there's a PT and there's a patient, where there's a demand for a patient and there's a PT there that wants to take them, it will work. So, we're kind of honing it here in Southern California where Jeff and I are in our respective counties here. But yeah, definitely the plan is to grow it.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. Before I let you go, do you have any word of advice for aspiring PTs? You can go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, sure. So,
wise one.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, we'll end with you with the wise one. So I think if I had to give some advice to aspiring or new PTs, we kind of touched on it before. Make sure you are taking care of yourself. And I think that's probably true all throughout healthcare. Like Jeff was saying, a lot of us get into this field because we want to care for other people. We want to make other people's lives better. And it's really easy, especially in this profession, to kind of get caught up in that and forget about yourself. And, you don't take time for yourself. You kind of give it all to your patients and to, the clinic or wherever you're working at. And I think my biggest advice would be, don't be shocked by the burnout. It's coming, and just try to make sure you're staying true to yourself and taking care of yourself. And when it happens, make sure you have some options and you kind of know where to look to maybe change your situation up a little bit so that you're able to give some more time to yourself.
That's fair. And Jeff, may we end with you?
Yeah, I think, like you said, people aspiring to be PTs, I think what you're doing with this podcast is great, because, my advice would revolve around knowing what you're getting into, right? So it's a lot of schooling. It's a lot of information. You have to like this information. And the worst thing is to get out of, a 3-year doctorate program after paying, at the cheap end, $75,000, but at the higher end, $200,000, and then not liking what you're doing, right? So, really dive into the different options out there, the different types of healthcare providers, to see if it's right for you, right? Maybe you want to be an AT instead, an athletic trainer instead, or maybe you want to be a PA instead, right? You need to look at what these programs offer. You need to get out in the field, volunteer, be an aide or an intern at one of these offices and really see what it's all about, because it's just so important with all the timing and the resources it takes to become a healthcare provider nowadays, and the competition, right, too. So that would be my advice, is just really learning about the different professions and figuring out what you want to go into before you start that path.
Okay. And would you say, is there any type of, if there's any adjective you will say would describe somebody who will be a great PT, what would you use?
I think they have to have great like interpersonal skills. They have to be able to read people. And one big word, of course, it's a broad one, but is empathy. Is like understanding that person that's in chronic pain or, wanting to help. And that's part of that is being able to project yourself into that person's shoes and know what it's like to walk in their shoes for a day. So that's a big one. It's a grind in physical therapy. There's not a ton of money in it compared to some of the other healthcare professions. So I think that, those are big ones for me.
Okay, well, that is all the questions I have for you. Do you guys have any questions or comment for the listeners today?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a patient or if you are again, somebody that's interested in the healthcare field, or you are a therapist, we are here pretty much 24/7 because we are business owners, but to chat, and hopefully you can post like some of our information, our contact information. You guys can email or text or call us, and we are here to help if anybody needs anything.
All right, thank you. I'll definitely put your information down so that folks can reach out to you as needed, and you can continue to build relationships, network.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sanan, for having us on. It was great.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys. You have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, I know I have an ending piece, but I'm adding this there because I have a new goal which of interacting with my listeners here, and that is to use Twitter as my main social media platform for Healthcare Boulevard listeners and appreciators and family. And so if you could find me on Twitter, my username there is Mrs. Kakbo at Mrs. Kakbo, and also the link is in the description below. My circle there is very small now. Like, I have not been using Twitter up until recently, and so I think I only have like maybe 5 followers or something there. And so please find me there, follow me, let's stay in touch, and feel free to message me for anything or just to say hello. All right, that's it. You have a good one. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you. Please subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share. And stay blessed. Bye.